Welcome to another episode of Over 50 and Flourishing, where we dive into inspiring stories of resilience and growth. Today, we have a remarkable guest who is not only an empowerment coach, but also a business mentor and an author. But she's also a survivor who has triumphed over childhood trauma and emerged as a beacon of hope for so many. Franceska McCaughan, she has a powerful mission to illuminate the path, creating the life that you desire through personal development, irrespective of your past or present circumstances. Having experienced child abuse and grown up in the foster care system, she's no stranger to adversity. Her memoir was published this year and it's called Thriving. She is a self-proclaimed cycle breaker, shattering the chains of poverty, abuse, and trauma. As a mentor to driven female creatives, she guides them to become the million-dollar version of themselves, empowering them to impact, create, and hold millions in their lives. Her journey is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the transformative power of personal development. Join us as we delve into her story, a story of triumph over adversity, a tale of healing, and an inspiring journey from survival to success. Her insights are not only a source of motivation, but also a gentle reminder that regardless of our past, we can all flourish and thrive. Please help me welcome our incredible guest, the self-proclaimed cycle breaker, survivor, and mentor extraordinaire. Hey there, fellow fans of fantastic television. I've been meaning to share something that's become a staple in my streaming routine, BritBox. Seriously, it is the streaming home for the absolute best in British TV. I've even got my family and friends hooked on some of the incredible shows that I've discovered. BritBox is easily accessible too, allowing you to stream from any device, anytime and anywhere. Dive into the best of British television with ease. Sign up for BritBox today to watch Payback and other great British programming. I do have a special for you, limited time offer for my US and Canadian listeners. Get 50% off your first month when you sign up for a monthly plan, but only if you go to BritBox.com and use my promo code OVER50 at checkout. Don't wait, get 50% off your first month. Use promo code OVER50 at BritBox.com. Support for today's episode is brought to you by Jenny Kane. And let me tell you, I am so excited to share this with you, especially with winter right around the corner. If you're like me and your wardrobe is just screaming for a seasonal refresh, you're in for a treat. Jenny Kane is the perfect blend of California cool, offering minimalist and effortlessly refined pieces that make getting dressed a breeze. From luxurious cashmere sweaters to iconic accessories and home essentials, Jenny Kane has you covered for the holiday season. Gift yourself and your loved ones the best gift of all, Jenny Kane. Our listeners get 25% off your first order when you use our exclusive jennykane.com/over50. That's 25% off your first order at JENNIKAYNE.com/over50. Let getting dressed be one less thing you worry about. Ladies, the holiday season is upon us, and that means it's time to find the perfect gifts for the men in your life. Look no further than True Classic. Trust me, you need to gift your men the best fitting t-shirts, jeans, and sweaters from True Classic. Their ultra comfortable, perfect fitting essentials make for the ideal gift for your significant other, friend, brother, dad, cousin, or even Secret Santa. True Classic is on a mission to boost men's confidence by elevating their style. And let me tell you, this is a gift that not only looks good on him, but it's also a really good gift for you. The men in your life definitely need this, so if you're ready to do them a favor and upgrade his closet, please shop now with my exclusive link at trueclassictees.com/over50 and save up to 60% off site-wide during their November holiday sale. That's trueclassictees.com/over50. This year, I'm thankful for True Classic. Hi, Franceska. I'm so glad that you're with me today. What an amazing guest you are. You know, I think this goes to show just how serendipitous life can be and how people can come across your path at unusual times and you never know the role that they're going to serve. So you and I lived briefly in the same building at the Ivy, literally 2 blocks from me now, where I also lived with my mother. You were there briefly. Explain your journey because your stop here in Texas is an interesting one. You're in Germany right now, so this is an overseas podcast taping, which is always fun and exciting. But just let everybody know what brought you here and your backstory as we talk about your evolution as a businesswoman, but also your deep dive into your own personal trauma and your desire to help other women as well. And I know that's a lot to unpack. So I'm just going to let you start with the connection in Houston and let you launch.
Thank you so much for having me. So I think, the first thing that came to mind when you mentioned this, and I was saying before we started the show, I still remember the boxes in the elevator with your name on them, with the ball gowns spilling out of them. And I was like,
who is this person?
And I remember meeting I met your mother at Thanksgiving meet and greet. I met a lot of your friends, and it was really incredible because I know you obviously from being in Houston and seeing you on the news channel a while ago. And everyone just had such incredible, kind things to say about you. And the reason why I want to mention this is in 2020, I kind of had this huge breakdown where I didn't really know who I was. I felt like I had all my beautiful billboards stripped away. I could no longer hide behind them. I didn't really know what my accolades were. I had realized that I tied all of my validation and self-worth to my bank account, to who my friends were, to who my client roster was. And I just found myself in my closet, like, am I a funny person? Like really fundamental questions and complete despair. And this is when I really found personal development, and I really learned about co-creating with the universe and manifestation. And it was something I had always done, but I didn't really realize it. But I became a lot more intentional. And one of the things I became intentional with was to release things that no longer served me, to stop settling in certain areas of my life. And we had a condo downtown at the time, and I had the splenic hit, if you're familiar with human design, to sell it. And it made 0 sense. But in the end, it was such an incredible move for both my husband and I. And that's when I decided I'm going to move to the Ivy. I want to put myself in a different zip code. I want to put myself around women who are really making things happen in their life. And so I have to preface this story that I definitely feel like I put myself in front of that elevator with the boxes, with your ball gown spilling out. And here we are today, but 2 years later, roughly a year and a half later. Anyway, I digress. So how I originally got to Houston was I was in the foster care system, and I came from Fort Worth. That's where I was originally born, and came to Houston and went through 2 different homes, and just always knew that education was going to be my way out. And that was something that my mom really had instilled in me, how important education was. And it was like the one thing that really equaled the playing field, no matter the color of your skin or the money in your bank account or the titles that you came from. Like if you were intelligent, you could potentially get a seat at the table. And so I always worked really hard knowing that that was going to be my way out. And so receiving a full ride scholarship from the University of Houston, naturally I stayed in Houston a little bit longer. And it wasn't until my first job that I feel like I kind of ran off to Dallas and then took a plane a year later and moved to Dubai and really became kind of like a global citizen, so to speak. So that is how I originally came from.
Now, when you say you were in the foster care system, explain that to everybody.
So at the age of 12, Child Protective Services came to my home due to reports of neglect and abuse. And the goal of Child Protective Services is they need to make sure the home is fit for the child. At the time, we did not have any running water in our home. We had not had running water for 5 years. There was no food in the fridge. There were clear indications of abuse. And at the time, as a 12-year-old, your main thing is to keep everything within the family. You never want to betray your parents' trust. Part of that is being a child and you love your parent, but the other part is like that's very ingrained in you by a toxic parent that everything has to stay in the home. So when someone from Child Protective Services came out and they did the interview, I didn't feel like I had a lot to lose because they were asking very straightforward questions. And the next thing I know, I'm being handed a black garbage bag. I'm being told to put things in it. And they were going to have to do basically a survey to understand how to reunite my mom and I. And so the way that it works is then you're placed in temporary care. and they do several interviews, and it goes to the court, and my father got involved. And long story short, the case deemed that my mother would be approved to take me back. But I talk about this a lot in my memoir. Our system is also very, very broken. So it's very easy to manipulate caseworkers that have, 30 caseloads at a time that aren't able to visit, the children in their schools or really do a doctor's report. Like, it's very easy for kids to slip through the system. And at the time, a best friend that I had gone to school with, her mom had a best friend who offered that I could come live with them and their family, and I would try to get into a prestigious school. You'll notice a theme that education is kind of like my way out, my ticket out. And so my mom agreed to these terms, and I was in that home for about 5 years. And inside this home, the mother had some serious bipolar issues, and things started becoming, again, very abusive in this home. And then I had a friend in school that said, you know what, just go live with my friend, my sister, and finish the last year of high school. And then that way you can, be done with all of this. And so it wasn't the traditional foster care system that I experienced, but I have experience with it from the outside, because later on in life, I did become a guardian ad litem with child advocates, where I do help other children that are currently in the system be a voice for them as they're navigating, whether it's their relatives' homes, their friends' homes, or the, strangers' homes inside that actual foster care system. It's all very similar. You're essentially living with strangers that aren't your family.
Yeah, I can certainly testify to your story, Franceska. As a news anchor, former news anchor, I can't tell you how many times we reported on stories of child abuse or a child that died at the hands of a parent, where CPS had been called in, maybe not once, but multiple times, and the child fell through the cracks. And it's a very complicated web, and the system doesn't always serve the child. In fact, the system often fails. And so your story alludes to that, and in a way getting punted around from different scenarios, different families, different setups for you to be able to thrive in, allegedly. You talk a lot about your mom. Was your dad involved in this in any way?
So not really. My dad really left my life when I was 9 months old. I saw him once when I was 7, and then again when I was 12, when I was placed in his care for a couple of months. And it wasn't really until I was 15 and he had decided he wanted to move from the States. He didn't want to be responsible for anything and went to Costa Rica. But he had this fantasy that we were somehow going to have this really strong father-daughter connection at some point, once I realized that my mom was the bad guy. And again, inside my memoir, I really wanted to make it clear that these systemic issues repeat themselves. They're these really subconscious cycles, but pointing the finger at the other parent. And I'm not saying that we don't end up in relationships or we don't parent with someone who really could be doing more, but I find there's an extreme lack of responsibility for ourselves and how we show up in our relationships. So at the age of 15, I started attempting to have some sort of connection with him. And we definitely had certain experiences together. And later on, I went into business with him. And that was probably the quote unquote closest we ever really got before his passing. But he was never really in my life. He was never privy. Again, when you're an abused child, the last thing you do is talk about the abuse at home, because you're also constantly being gaslit that it's not happening. I know many times I would have proof and I would just ask questions. And again, I go really in depth in the memoir about this, and just having someone blatantly tell you that your truth is not your truth, it's not your reality, and in fact, you're some kind of vicious monster making this up, you never want to feel irrelevant, and you definitely never want to feel like you're lying about something. And so you just tend not to share it. And this is where the issue that I'm starting to see is this constant running from it now, or this constant overperforming, or the constant pushing it down and trying to pretend it didn't happen. And this comes up in a number of ways later on in our interpersonal relationships, in our work, in our actual health. I think it reduces the years on our life. And so it's just, my dad really wasn't privy, but he also didn't really make himself available.
Yeah, I'm sure you've noticed, and it seems that whenever you talk about trauma or you talk about people who have suffered, and everybody has suffered some form of trauma. Childhood in and of itself is traumatic. Parents are imperfect. So we've all experienced some type of trauma. Obviously, some circumstances like yours, the far extreme end of that system. But it seems like two things can happen. We can either go through life and we can sort of put on that victim hat and say, I have been subjugated to the most horrible abuse. I'm a victim. I can't move forward. I'm going to perpetuate, a lot of people perpetuate the abuse in adulthood. And so it becomes this vicious cycle of not being to break out of it. In your case, the opposite happened, which you see happen quite often. You dig in your heel. You say, this will not be me. This will not be my life. I'm going to push forward. I'm going to do better. And yes, you do push forward and do better. But I'm sure, as you can testify, you still have to do that deep work because the trauma bonds are there and the cycles are there. And I know that you help a lot of people now in that situation. So just explain your journey through that, because I know you motored through and you became very successful, but what was going on deep inside you?
I'm so happy you asked this question because I find people who especially have dealt with childhood trauma, and there's big T trauma and little T trauma, and by no means would I ever want an interview like this to ever feel like someone had to compete with who had a more traumatic experience.
Correct.
As individuals that have had childhood trauma, there is a fundamental piece of us that never fully developed. Mm-hmm. As children, we see ourselves through our parents' eyes, especially our mother's eye, and especially as women. And so the biggest thing that I see that happens as adults of survivors of child abuse is, one, they think nobody cares. And so they kind of write off their lives. And it's very easy for society to write them off too, because they're not giving us anything. They're not performing. They're not getting shiny stars. Or the opposite happens. They become very addicted to achievement. Mm-hmm. And they numb with work. Mm-hmm. And they get burnt out, and they perpetuate the cycle in two different ways. Now we're always splitting off here, but it's very complex. The first way is that they create their own family dynamic where they can repeat all the cycles. Because again, we have to remember, as children who have been abused and we've practically raised ourselves, we're really used to toxic relationships. That's where we feel comfortable. We hate them, but we know how to navigate them. We know how to fix people. We know how to hang on to the hope that one day that we'll be saved. Yeah. Or we decide that we won't have children and we won't have a partner and we won't even be available. Our heart will just calcify and we don't even want to touch vulnerability. And we just become very glorified in the eyes of, again, society as being a top level executive or a high performer that, dies at 53 of a heart attack. Mm-hmm. And I think that both of these directions are heartbreaking because they essentially rob us of the one thing that we're always looking for, which is that groundedness within ourselves, where we feel at home within ourselves. Mm-hmm. And because that was always really dangerous for us, and it was a matter of survival and safety, we're constantly looking for ways to not ever feel landed or connected inside of ourselves. And so the one thing that I have really focused on the past few years, and the one thing that I really help my clients with, is slowly peeling back the layers. We're talking about an onion here. Mm-hmm. We can be here for years, but the reason why this is so powerful is you don't want to be older, especially as a woman, and realize you never had children because you never really released any kind of connection to what it was like when you had a mother. And I have women approach me all the time, like, do you think this is why I don't want to have kids? And mm-hmm. I think it's a huge reason why you don't want to have kids, because you don't, one, know what it's like to mother something, or you don't trust that you can be nurturing. But deep down inside there is a little girl who is so desperate to finally be seen and chosen. And that is our work. Our work is to reparent that little girl so she feels safe enough to be the best wife, the best partner, the best mother, the best sister, friend that she can be. And we're just now on the cusp of this in this new paradigm that we all have access to.
Yes, absolutely. The work is critical. And I think that a lot of us, and I'm going to loop myself into that because I know that I was victim of this, try to resolve in relationships, try to use relationships as a way to resolve the trauma and the pain from the past. And it can't work that way, because you are, like you said, you're just re-subjecting yourself to scenarios and models that are familiar to you, because and it's such an oxymoron. You hate it, you remember the pain from it, and yet you immerse yourself into something that resembles it and think you can do the work in that, and you can't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're really just wanting someone to save you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's called having a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And again, naturally, if you've had any kind of really difficult upbringing, the people that were meant to be there to save you were never there. And so it's only natural that that part of your brain is still waiting for that moment. But when you do that, you don't actually give the true agency and sovereignty to the other people in your life. You know, this is how you become a people pleaser. This is how we have codependent relationships. And it's not because the other person is bad. It's because the two of you have become an energetic match, because you can continuously refuel the fire until someone says, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. I love psychology, and I love the deep dive into childhood and understanding why what happened then directs what happens in the present, until we choose to stop that or modify that and understand it. So Franceska McCaughan is our guest today. She is such a delight, a former neighbor of mine, but also a woman who's really a light in the world right now, helping other women better understand their trauma and their pain so that they can move forward to have healthy relationships and also a very successful future. And we're going to talk a lot more about that on the back half of this break on Over 50 and Flourishing. Hey there, fellow fans of fantastic television. I've been meaning to share something that's become a staple in my streaming routine. BritBox. Seriously, it is the streaming home for the absolute best in British TV. I've even got my family and friends hooked on some of the incredible shows that I've discovered. It's kind of like my go-to place to unwind and dive into quality content you're just not going to find anywhere else. Now, if you're into gripping crime dramas, classic mysteries, and of course, fan favorite comedies like Father Brown, Vera, Luther, and Shetland, BritBox has you covered. With exclusive new originals like Stonehouse and Sherwood, it's no wonder that the New York Times hails it as the best of British telly. Now, I'm currently hooked on BritBox's original series, Payback. It's a twisty thriller starring Morven Christie and Peter Mullen. The story, produced by the mastermind behind Bodyguard and Line of Duty, is a roller coaster of emotions as a woman unravels the secrets of her husband's life. With its compelling twists and outstanding performances, I cannot stop watching. Hey, BritBox is easily accessible too, allowing you to stream from any device, anytime and anywhere. Dive into the best of British television with ease. Sign up for BritBox today to watch Payback and other great British programming. I do have a special for you, limited time offer for my US and Canadian listeners. Get 50% off your first month when you sign up for a monthly plan, but only if you go to BritBox.com and use my promo code OVER50 at checkout. Don't wait. Get 50% off your first month. Use promo code OVER50 at BritBox.com. Support for today's episode is brought to you by Jenny Kane. And let me tell you, I am so excited to share this with you, especially with winter right around the corner. If you're like me and your wardrobe is just screaming for a seasonal refresh, you're in for a treat. Jenny Kane is the perfect blend of California cool, offering minimalist and effortlessly refined pieces that make getting dressed a breeze. From luxurious cashmere sweaters to iconic accessories and home essentials, Jenny Kane has you covered for the holiday season. Now let me share with you why I'm obsessed with Jenny Kane. Clearly, I'm wearing a Jenny Kane sweater right now, and if you saw my closet clean out video with Holly, you saw me wearing this with a pair of vegan leather pants. I absolutely love it. Classic pieces, classic colors that will never ever go out of style. These are your wardrobe basics. So trust me, this is a brand that you're definitely going to want to have in your wardrobe for those reasons. So let's dive into the must-haves for the season. Jenny Kane sweaters are truly the it item. And right now, I cannot get enough of the Flynn cashmere sweater. It is a perfect wear with anything. That one comes in a V-neck, and the cashmere half zip. That's a cool everyday staple. Both back in must-have shades, and you bet I'm adding both to my cart ASAP. I get compliments every time I wear my Jenny Kane sweater, and they are so comfortable. I can live in this all season long. Absolutely a great thing to gift during the holiday season as well. Jenny Kane believes in the art of simplicity, focusing on comfort, quality, and timeless design, so you can create a wardrobe that basically never goes out of style. Again, the word basic. Gift yourself and your loved ones the best gift of all, Jenni Kayne. Our listeners get 25% off your first order when you use our exclusive jennikayne.com/over50. That's 25% off your first order at JENNIKAYNE.com/over50. Let getting dressed be one less thing you worry about. Welcome back, everybody. My guest today is Franceska McCaughan. She is an empowerment coach. She is a best-selling author. She is helping all of us deal with past trauma so that we can move forward in our lives and live our best lives, to live our most fulfilling, our most thrilling, our most authentic and successful lives. You know, we don't realize how often these past pains and traumas really hold us back, not only on a personal level, Franceska, but on a professional level as well. So we've been doing deep dive into childhood pain, and you've been very gracious to share yours. I know you've done so in your memoir. Let's talk a little bit about that and what prompted you to write this book, and what your goal is and how you want to help women.
Absolutely. So as a child, I just always knew I would share my story. I think it was the one thing that really helped me cope, because I felt so masked, like I couldn't, like, just muted. I couldn't share it with anyone. You know, it's you're fighting for your life at night, and then you're going to school and you're having to make straight A's and pretending like everything's fine. And you're keeping up with the facade, and you're keeping up with the lies. And even just earlier today, I received a Facebook message from one of my childhood friends' mother, who was just absolutely beside herself, that she had no idea that this was happening. And she said, I want to ask you why, but I already know why. And so it was the one thing that gave me comfort. No, I always had this sense of a spiritual presence. I had a very close near-death experience that I talk about in the memoir. And it was at that moment that I truly realized that I wasn't alone. And I decided that if this was happening for me, it was for a reason, and that I had to share it with the world one day. And I thought that that would happen when I was a lot older. I thought that it would happen when, you know, my mother had passed, and to give her the respect, or, you know, certain family members were gone. And then in 2020, going back to all the billboards crashing, I quickly realized that I fundamentally didn't know who I was as a person at my core. I only knew what costume you wanted me to put on, or how you wanted me to adapt. And I'm not saying that that's because I wanted to fool people, or that's bad. I think we all have some level of that. But I was a chameleon, and especially with children of alcoholics, we are raised as chameleons, because that is, again, how we survived. And so as my business was evolving, I had a floral design business. I started entering the coaching space, naturally helping people with business coaching. I was quickly seeing, like, you know, I really could give you all the strategies, but it's about mindset. It's about confidence. It's about belief in yourself. It's about money mindset. And I was quickly noticing that their triggers were my triggers. And I could no longer hide behind, oh, I'm Tiffany & Co.'s Texas State florist in 7 stores. Like, look how shiny I am. I'm sitting in front of someone and I'm like, I get that, but I can't express that to them. And so this is when I quickly knew, like, there was work to be done. And I didn't really know what that meant. I had never heard about personal development up till this point. I just knew I could outwork anyone in a room. And I knew that I was always going to survive no matter what. And again, these are great coping skills. They got me to where I was at that moment. But now I needed another layer. I needed an evolution, and that required going deep. And so I dedicated about a year extensively. I invested a lot. I learned a lot. And out of nowhere, at the beginning of, in the summer of 21, I actually read Untamed by Gwyneth Doyle. I believe that's her name. And I just remember it was a book of short stories. And I was like, well, I could write a book like this. So I started, and I didn't really take it seriously. And then January of 2022, I thought, well, I'm ready to be a leader now. I've done a whole year of personal development. I'm ready to go, and had just this strong urge. And it was just write the book. That's all I got. It was just a voice. It just said, write the book. And I was like, well, no, I don't want to write a book. I just want to be a good leader, and I want to be a good coach and a good mentor. And none of that mattered. It was write the book. And so I hired an editor in February, and I told her I want to have a book done in 2 months. Again, this was very old Franceska fashion, and I would compromise the integrity of my story, and I would
Mm-hmm.
totally disassociate from it and not do it the service that it deserved, because I was all about deadlines and how could I set myself up for failure but still win. It was like this really addictive need of achieving even when it didn't make sense. And long story short, it's taken almost 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
and it has been the most beautiful healing journey I could have ever given myself. It's as if I've been in therapy
Yes.
nonstop for 2 years. And to go back and reconnect with every single version of you, every single age, to go back and remember what the conversation was, the dialogue, the body language, it was excruciating
Mm-hmm.
at times. And I definitely did not want to do it. And I had to carve a lot of time out, a lot of space from my professionalism, from my personal relationships. However, it truly is the groundedness that this live wire that I'm going to call my human vehicle has been looking for my entire
Mm-hmm.
life. And it was all because I sat with it. I didn't relive it. I revisited it, but I had to do that in order to process it and finally just let it go.
Yeah. You and I do share that experience in that it took me about the same length of time to write my book as well. And it was the most vulnerable I really
Mm.
feel that I had ever been. And I think that that's like taking the chisel and cracking the shell. And once you get in the shell and you break it open, you realize it's not as bad and it's not as scary as you thought it would be, but it is the only way to be able to live truly and authentically on this earth the way I believe God designed us to be, and the only way to even forge human connection. And so I'm sure for you, you saw this as A, the most cathartic experience in the end, surprisingly, but B, opened the door to the most lovely human connection and interaction that you've probably ever seen.
Yeah. It still feels so surreal. I've been comparing it with bringing home a baby from the hospital. I
Yes.
don't personally have children yet, but I can't imagine what that feels like, because you yourself are healing from giving birth
Yep.
and you feel raw and vulnerable. And you know, you've been pregnant for the past 9 months. Like, this didn't come out of nowhere, but now you're home and now you have to
Mm-hmm.
keep this baby alive. And what is he or she going to be like in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 18 years? Oh my gosh, am I going to be around to see that? And there's so many emotions that come flooding in. And like you said, it's the most real, the most honest, vulnerable I've ever been.
Yep.
And there was a TED Talk by Brene Brown,
Mm-hmm.
which was the power of vulnerability, the connection of vulnerability. And it just changed, it changed my life. And in that moment, I came up with the motto that we have to stop suffering in silence,
Yes.
especially as women, in order to be palatable, nice, ladylike,
Mm-hmm.
like insert very vague descriptor
Yes.
here of a woman, and instead find strength in sharing our story, because our stories are not special in the sense that we're special because we're the only people that have ever experienced them, but they are unique. And then in that uniqueness, we can find the togetherness that we're all craving and which we're all pretending we have,
Mm-hmm.
but deep, deep down inside, we're still missing that vulnerability piece.
What do you feel was the hardest thing for you to share in what you wrote?
Two things. Again, there is a near death experience from my mother that she still denies to this day. So all the parts with my mother, I felt like I was betraying her the whole time, and it was very difficult. And I had to, in that moment, choose my inner child, and I had to
Mm-hmm.
choose myself and my story. And I always say your body is the barometer of your peace, and
Yes.
your body never lies. So the mind will try to tell you that maybe it didn't happen. Maybe you are making this up. Maybe you're just a really horrible person. But your body, the week-long migraine, the constant crying, the shakes, the deregulation, like, you have trauma inside your body. And this amount of trauma doesn't happen from being told to go to your room when you didn't want to. So that was probably one of the hardest, realizing, and also feeling a deep compassion for my mother, that she was in this place of extreme suffering and, I'm sure, fear, and had her own demons and had her own addictions and her own mental health. And now she's trying to raise a small child on her own with absolutely no help. Like, my heart goes out to her in the sense of being able to see her humanity. So that whole concoction was very difficult to navigate in a way that was an integrity to who I am and my experience in the story. And then the second part is really speaking to my 12-year marriage that I've had with my husband, and really giving my point of view of why I entered into this marriage, what my expectations were in this marriage, that the type of person that he brought to the table. And even though now it's like, this is 4 years after the memoir ends. The memoir ends in 2019. And my husband and I are in a completely different place. And I'd have to say the most healthy of our relationship we've ever had. And I'm so extremely grateful for his open-mindedness. But it's also realizing that he's going to read this. And there's going to be certain ideas and fantasies that maybe he thought that he's going to realize I actually told him a complete lie, or it wasn't like that. But again, the truth sets us free, and we have to trust that the people that love us, like the way we love ourselves, they can handle our honesty.
Yes. And I ask you that not to put you on the spot, clearly not, because you've written to it and, so many people are going to read it. But the reason for discussing these things is that, just like you said, so many women hold on to. There are so many unspoken truths, and they do manifest. They manifest emotionally, they manifest physically, they manifest in our health, they manifest in our behavior, and that we have to articulate these things and get them out. Speak it to yourself, write it down, talk to a therapist, talk to somebody. Get this stuff out, because I think we hold on to so much in the name of shame, in the name of what we believe is self-preservation, but it's actually self-harm by burying all of this and not letting it go.
I agree 100%. And the other thing is that a lot of times our stories is a missing link in someone else being able to fully accept or process their own story. And so we're actually robbing our collective of a type of healing if we're not willing to heal for ourselves first. And we can always apologize. We also have to remember that when we are speaking our truth, or we're writing our truth, or we're communicating it, we can always do it with compassion. We can always do it with grace, the best that we have available today. Like, certainly my level of compassion today is completely different than a year ago, and it will probably continue to be different than a year from now. But as long as we're showing up in our best, and we're remembering that we're extending the compassion that we all pray for, then I don't think you can go wrong. I really don't. I think you can only go wrong if you still believe that you need to suffer in silence in order to be insert here for somebody else, because now you're living in complete discomfort for someone else's perceived comfort. And that might not even be what they need, because actually you're withholding connection from them.
Yes.
And you're still creating this version of you, which you're feeling unfulfilled. This person most likely is feeling unfulfilled. And then whatever unit you have around you, whether it's a family, a business, a community, like, they're not getting the true authentic you. And that's the version that we all want to see. And for the first time in our lives, and in all our ancestors that came before us, especially the females, this is the first time that we actually have enough security to do that. Women can make their own money. We can choose who we want to marry if it's for love. Like, there's so much flexibility that we have that, our grandmothers didn't even have access to.
Yes. And I think we rob ourselves of this great potential connection. I mean, as we're having this conversation, I think back to my past of when I shelled myself and I had this sort of perfection bubble that everything was just great and wonderful, when in fact it just wasn't. And I have found through my growth and evolution of just learning to break it down and learning to speak it and not be ashamed of it and not be afraid to say things aren't perfect. My relationships have gotten closer. I have the richest friendships, more so, and even with people in my past, the things that we've shared now have connected us in such a greater way in male-female relationships. I mean, in business and in connection with viewers, there's so much that we rob ourselves of just by having this veil of it's okay, everything's fine, everything's great, when it's really not. And what are we so afraid of?
Yeah. Not being chosen, not being seen, not being accepted, and I always think to myself, anytime that I think that I am unworthy of something, it's usually rooted in perfectionism somewhere.
Yeah.
And again, I think this is a thing that women really struggle with, because this is what we're taught. This is what we're modeled. But perfection only exists in the dictionary. And I love that you talk about the shell, because I also think that this perpetuates a victim mentality that even strong, independent women want to claim we don't have. But there is something called the Cartman drama triangle, and you fall into one of the three corners. Victim is one of them. Mm-hmm. But when we can walk around with our perfect shell and we can play this narrative of people only knew, if people only knew what I struggled with or what I put up with or what I've been through, all of a sudden it gives us this sense of entitlement. And now we have a chip on our shoulder, and now we feel like more jaded. And this is the exact opposite direction that we want to go into.
Yeah. So how do you, as you work with women in the empowerment arena, and it's like multi-pronged, right? You cover a lot of facets. So I want to talk about that, but where do you start? I mean, do you start with that inner child? How do you even get in there in the first place, Franceska?
I mean, it depends. Everyone's different, right? Yeah. Like we all have a unique thumbprint or fingerprint. The first thing is I just listen. Everyone comes for mentorship or coaching for different reasons. And it's usually fueled by either a closer connection, like in their family. So let's say they want to have a better relationship with their partner, or it comes from, I'm in this job that I absolutely hate. I know I'm getting burnt out. I'm really sick, but I don't know how to quit. I have all these expenses. I have all these responsibilities, like this sense of basking in overwhelm, but really extending their power outside of themselves. Or it comes from a place of money, like they're driven by money, they're driven by results, they want to grow a business. Mm-hmm. And all of these are really great areas to start with, because I really find that if you can show them how they can set their lives up for success their way, in a way that makes sense to them. And this is why I use human design in a lot of my coaching, because it's ultimately who your soul came here to be before it was told what to do.
Yes.
And it's that whole deconditioning of the doing, and it's reconnecting with the being. And if I can focus on one of these three areas, with your relationship, your career, or your money, then from there you can start chiseling down, and you'll finally get to the inner child, and then you can rebuild and work your way back up.
Yes, I guess in a way it's interesting. You're starting sort of at the leaves, you're making your way in the branches, and then eventually you get down into the root, because it takes a while and it takes trust to be able to get there. We're going to talk more about that and the different ways that you get in, and how you are enabling women to live their most self-actualized life, to be able to be the most authentic and the most successful in every area. Right after this break. Ladies, the holiday season is upon us, and that means it's time to find the perfect gifts for the men in your life. Look no further than True Classic. Trust me, you need to gift your men the best-fitting t-shirts, jeans, and sweaters from True Classic. Their ultra-comfortable, perfect-fitting essentials make for the ideal gift for your significant other, friend, brother, dad, cousin, or even Secret Santa. True Classic is on a mission to boost men's confidence by elevating their style. And let me tell you, this is a gift that not only looks good on him, but it's also a really good gift for you. Here's the exciting part. For a limited time this November, True Classic is offering our listeners an exclusive Black Friday deal all month long, up to 60% off site-wide at trueclassictees.com/over50. Don't miss out on this fantastic offer. Hey, we've all been there, struggling to find a good t-shirt, pair of shorts, or jeans for the men in our lives. True Classic has completely re-engineered how t-shirts fit, tighter around the arms, chest, and shoulders, but also a little bit of a looser fit in the torso. The fabric buttery soft, making it the perfect base layer on chilly days. And the best part? It's a premium product at an affordable price. You can even buy in bulk with their 3, 6, and 9 packs for extra savings. The comfort jeans fit in all the right places, offering that classic look with a 4-way stretch for maximum comfort. And let's talk about their new Feels Like Cashmere sweater. Yes, this is a winter essential. I bought a 2-pack so I could steal one for myself and give one to Styles. It's that comfortable. Their hoodies and their crews are versatile for casual days, work, holidays, and gym trips. And for a more formal look, they've got you covered with 5 different styles of button-up shirts and fleece jackets for that extra warmth during the cold weather. With True Classic, he will look and feel his best all day long. And here's the cherry on top. True Classic is so committed to their products that they offer a 100% perfect fit guarantee and easy returns. Now that is confidence in what they deliver. The men in your life definitely need this, so if you're ready to do them a favor and upgrade his closet, please shop now with my exclusive link at trueclassictees.com/over50 and save up to 60% off site-wide during their November holiday sale. That's trueclassictees.com/over50. This year, I'm thankful for True Classic. Hope you're enjoying today's conversation. I sure am. My guest today is Franceska McCaughan. She is an empowerment coach. She's a best-selling author. She's a former neighbor of mine. You know, our paths crossed, and I love this. I love the power of human connection and how people can come into our lives, you know, for, as they say, for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And Franceska, you were there for a season, but clearly there's a reason. And now this video will last for a lifetime. So we check all the boxes, right?
I love how you do that.
Thank you. You know, we're talking about childhood trauma. We're talking about the things that happened to us in our youth. You elaborated on yours. You have written to it. You know, you went through the ringer in, you know, abuse at home with your mother, the foster care system, going around from house to house. You know, you pushed through that with a hard work ethic and a strong work ethic, which led to an incredible amount of personal success for you. And I'll have you talk a little bit more about all the things that you've done, because, you know, you've kind of come full circle, right? You had to heal your own trauma. You had sort of an implosion like a lot of people did right around, you know, 2020, when the world stopped and suddenly we had to stop and look inward. And there's been a lot of self-reflection and a lot of personal change during that time. For you, it led to a book, it led to coaching, but you also have a success story as well. So talk about that.
So I started my entrepreneurial journey in 2012, and I was in the Middle East. I was in the Dubai United Arab Emirates.
How did you get there, by the way?
I manifested it. I was such a powerful manifestor, didn't even realize it. So I had a long-term relationship, and this person I was with was throughout all the foster care homes, and we had started dating when I was 14. And really, I had grown up with him. He had become a parent to me. And I talk about him in the book. And I always loved him, but I was never in love with him, which now totally makes sense looking back. But I knew that we did not have the same vision. And I felt very stifled in this relationship and started daydreaming. The relationship was coming to an end. It was very clear. And I started making up this person who would have been the perfect candidate, but I made it so complicated. So it was like, you know, when I meet this person, they won't be American, but they'll be Americanized. And they'll have an accent, but you won't be able to place it. And when I meet them, they'll ask me to take me to get a coffee. They won't ask me to go get a drink. Like, just very, very tiny details. And
wow, like
I was
needle in a haystack scenario.
I was very impressed with this list. I said, a mutual contact will introduce us. It will be very serendipitous. And I was not, again, I had no connection to my feelings. So I was not the type of person that was a hopeless romantic. I was very much like, I'm getting my degree. I'm climbing the corporate ladder. I'm going to have a beautiful glass box and have a really successful sales career or whatever. That's all I cared about. Anyone else would just hold me down. So flash forward, like I want to say a few weeks, I'm in my last semester of college. I'm in work study. I work for the dean's office, and the assistant of the dean calls me into her office and says, there's someone I want you to meet. And she did this all the time. So I was always meeting industry professionals. Like I was very close with Eric Hilton. Like it was a really incredible bonus that I received being part of the office and for us to have this great relationship. So I sit down and she asked me to take my glasses off, which I thought was really weird because she'd never done this before. And I took off my glasses and in walked this very handsome man, and she introduced him as Martin. And at the time, I was really fixated on working for a company called PKF. They were a hospitality consulting company. They're now part of Colliers.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to go to Dubai. And I learned about Dubai in my first college class, Intro to Tourism, when there was a picture of the Burj Al Arab put on the screen, and I was told this would be the next Eiffel Tower.
Huh.
This would replace international tourism as we knew it. And I thought, absolutely not. Nobody can compete with France. Like, what is this, UAE? How are they only like 25 years old as a country? So I stick my hand out and I say, hi, Martin, nice to meet you. My name is Franceska. And Donna is her name. Donna says, Martin works for PKF in Dubai. And of course, I'm all here.
Okay, universe. Okay, God.
These things happen all the time. So I was just like, oh, of course you are.
Mm-hmm.
And had a little banter. And then I excused myself and he said, can I take you to get a coffee? And
stop it.
I'm serious. And he was very Americanized, but he's German.
Mm-hmm.
And he speaks English flawlessly, but has this, people are like, is that Canadian? Is that British?
Mm-hmm.
Is that Australian? Nobody knows. And anyway, long story short, that's how we met. And now I'm trying to remember your original question.
Oh, just about your, that's what love does to you, Franceska. It completely derails your brain. And I'm so glad that happened to you, because that just showed me how normal you are.
Very normal.
But about your story. So, and how you got into Dubai and your businesses.
That's how I got to Dubai. Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
I hope everyone is okay with that.
We digressed in a beautiful way, by the way.
We did. We're getting back on the freeway now.
Yeah.
So long story short, we ended up having a whirlwind 10-month international long relationship. And then he asked me to marry him. And at the time, it was illegal to live in the Middle East as if you're not married.
Mm-hmm.
And so we parted ways in Switzerland. And 3 months later, we stood at the altar and we got married. And 4 days later, I moved to Dubai. So
wow.
I technically moved to Dubai because I married someone who lived there, but I also very much co-created that whole situation for myself.
Right.
But I lived there for 6 years. And when I was in Dubai, I was working in the hospitality industry, and a position that I really wanted, I didn't get, because at the time we had Arab Spring going on. We still had the financial crisis, like no one was investing. And when there's no money, there's no development. And that's what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And so they offered me basically a huge step off this corporate ladder that I had my heart set on. And I decided that I was going to leave the world of employment as I knew it. Because at the time I had started modeling and doing events, and I was just getting paid a lot more money showing up on photo shoots a few times a month than actually working my 9-to-5 job. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started working with my dad. I approached the Middle East market with cigars. We quickly started working with Etihad Airways, Hennessy XO, Dubai Duty Free, which is the largest duty free in the world. And all of a sudden I was making $10,000 months as like a 25-year-old. I had no idea really what I was doing. I was going into these meetings talking about a product that I didn't even consume. And it was a very surreal experience for me, but it gave me the confidence to ultimately go after my retirement dream, which was going into the floral industry. And I literally Googled how to become a florist. What's the difference between a florist and a floral designer? Do you have to own a flower shop to be a florist? Like mm-hmm. Back then there was really no information. And I flew to LA and I took a 2 weeks course, master's course. And I have to put that in air quotes because I really came back and had no idea what I was doing, and just started slinging stems. And my first client was Waldorf Astoria, and wow. Just took off. The wedding industry took off. All of my event contacts seemed to move overnight. It was just right place, right time. But again, I think this speaks to the power. And sometimes the human just needs evidence. Like, where else in your life have you just landed in that perfect place? But was it perfect, or did you already know that was going to happen because you had the desire already? I call them memories from the future. So I started my floral business in Dubai. I literally soaked foam in my bathtub. So I'm buying my flowers from this man who does not speak any English. In the back of his van was sand sand roads, camels walking by. Like I literally needed some sort of Netflix show. It was ridiculous. I had started with zero help. And then Martin decided he wanted to have some normalcy after being in Dubai for 10 years, wanted to go back to Houston. I definitely had existential crisis because I was like, that's why we got married. So you could save me and I never had to go back there. So,
right. And I want to be in Dubai.
Exactly. So when I came back to Houston, instead of dealing with those feelings, I just thought, well, I'm going to open up a flower shop. And I didn't want my clients in Dubai to feel like I ran away. So I just kept that studio. And then I came up with this really crazy idea that every year I'll open a new studio around the world and I'll stay in it for 6 months and then I'll open the next one. And I did that for about 3 years and I got insane burnout. And quickly realized that I was all the money was coming in and all the money was going out. And I would literally make more money if I just sat at home with my cat on the couch. Mm-hmm. And that's when I had to really sit my ego down and come up with a plan. So I closed my Dubai studio and I closed my Dallas studio and I just focused on Houston and I just focused on corporate clients and our hotel clients. And I didn't really notice that I had a problem with overachieving until pulling into my driveway one day after I just had won all of the stores for Tiffany & Co. for the state of Texas. And my first thought was, what's next? Like, I didn't know what it meant to celebrate. I didn't know what it thought to take a day off. It was just like this constant running and this fear of everyone's going to find out that I actually don't know what I'm doing. And everyone's going to find out that like, I'm not worthy of this. And so like, let me just get as much as I can for as long as it lasts. That was really the fear that was fueling me. And so after I downsized, I really started looking at the different areas that I hated in my life. And I feel like this is really important to give a perspective of an entrepreneurial journey because it's so easy to give the highlight reel, but and then we also like to glamorize the struggle, but there is this human process that happens where I felt like I had built a golden cage for myself. I felt like I had built my business on someone else's why, meaning like I can be at home for when I have my kids. Well, I don't even have kids. I don't even know if I want to have kids. You know, I can out earn my husband. So when he leaves me, I have money in the bank. I'm like, well, I don't want my husband that might leave me. And these are the things we have to be careful of because like we spoke about on the break, like you can subconsciously attract this. And so in 2019, I realized I felt trapped and I completely restructured my business. And that's when I decided to start working for life profit versus just money profit and started going online and started to build more of an online platform that I could make more of a difference than just pretty flowers in a hotel lobby. And that's brought me to where I am today.
Yeah. I mean, it's such an incredible story. And you're really, you bring so much life experience just in what you accomplished and what you overcame and putting those together to lead to empowerment to help women. And you're meeting women right where they are, because what I love about this audience, this podcast is over 50 and flourishing. And think about this, midlife is just riddled with so much change. And we talk about this on the platform all the time because, kids are leaving, parents are aging, oftentimes relationships are ending or they're being re-examined, and careers are. There's so much going on, and there's so much, and I don't see it as a negative. I see it as ripe with opportunity based on how you see things and based on the choices that you make and the seeds that are planted in your heart. But it's also a season of a lot of work. And I want to talk about work specifically now, because I hear from women all the time, Franceska, that they are, either frustrated with what they've done for so long and there's a passion project or there's something speaking to them and they don't know how to lift it. They don't know how to get off that launch pad, or they have to. They've been through divorce, finances are tight. They need to. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about, the role that trauma serves, but also the role of just being a badass woman at this stage of life, and that it's not only possible, it's doable, and you should do it if it's planted in your heart.
1,000,000%. There's a big reason why you have the dreams and the ideas and the visions and the what ifs and the holy smokes. Can you imagine if this ever happened? Yes. And I have my own version of that. And there's a reason for that, because we're the ones that are meant to bring it into the world. We're the ones that are meant to be the vehicle. But we've all followed a very similar path in the sense of like, you have to go to school, you have to get good grades, and you have to go to college, and you need to take out debt, and you need to pay for your college, and then you need to get your job so you can pay your debt, and then you need to buy a house. And it's all orchestrated. And by no means is this like doom and gloom, because there's three different types of people. There's the person that's like completely risk adverse, and that works really well for them. They're like, look, I know what I need to do for my life. I'm going to have my family. The most important thing for me is that I'm a provider and I feel anchored and I have some sort of routine. And they're very happy with that. And then there's the type of people that they're like a little bit curious. They're like, well, what's outside this like veil of illusion? Like, what else could I do? And then you have the trailblazers and the industry disruptors that are like, none of that feels good. Like that feels like death. I need to feel excited. I want to feel creative. I want to feel like I'm bringing something into the world. And so what I'm going to say is probably going to land on everyone a little bit differently. But the number one thing I say to anyone, if you find yourself fantasizing about a better life, it's because you've already achieved it. And what I mean by this is if we can disconnect from time, meaning like, well, I don't have it right now, or, you know, we think time is very linear, but we can actually receive it as a message from our higher self, essentially saying like, okay, you're dreaming of this beautiful condo with this beautiful beach view. And like, wouldn't that be so nice to wake up to with your coffee? Well, you actually already have that 3 years from now. And then you'll notice your brain will go, how? And the how is not any of our concern, because when we try to control the how, we are literally taking all of the magic from the universe. We're essentially saying, give me that, I'm going to figure it out. But like a small child, there's no way you could figure out this quantum physics, problem. So instead, it's like honoring the fact that you want to figure out how, because that's the brain trying to keep you safe. But I don't need, my job is not to know the how, my job is to know the what. And then my job is to be able to be open to receive. So if you find yourself fantasizing about leaving your 9 to 5, or find yourself fantasizing about finally opening that bakery, or starting that coaching business, or whatever it is that you're curious about. And if you're in a place in your life where you're like, I don't even know what it would be, I just know I'm not happy with what I have right now. It's the things that you're jealous of. It's the things that you feel like activated by, like scrolling on social media and seeing someone be a travel influencer. And you're like, isn't that nice? They get to make money like traveling around, or like, I bet they're not even making money. Like, you have a certain reaction to things that you are subconsciously jealous of, and you're jealous of them because you want them. And we have to like totally decondition ourselves of thinking that our wants and desires are bad and greedy and selfish. They are literally the sparkly energy that we came here to embody.
Amen. Thank you for saying that.
So I would just say, like, start with what it is that you want. And I know in the very beginning for me, I was in a place where I was extreme victim, and I was mad at the world, and it was everyone else's fault. And I could tell you all the reasons why. But if I asked myself, what are the things I like? What are the things I wish I could do? I could not think of one thing. So I know that this happens. And what helped me was I made a list of all the things that I hated, that I could not stand. And it's so easy to rattle off all the things that do not make sense in your life that you wish were different. And then you can go back and you can see a theme. And for me, my theme was freedom. I felt tied down. I wanted more freedom. And so what I had to do is I had to learn a skill set. I had to be open to thinking, well, what's a different way I could restructure my business? What's a different way that I could communicate with my partner? And so being aware of like what triggers you when you get jealous is a huge green flag of what it is that you're missing out on, that you genuinely want to do. Realizing you don't have to know what the how is, you literally just need to know the what. And if you can't find that, then think about all the things that you really don't like and then flip them. And that will give you a very clear list. And then the next thing I want to say is, the third thing is, take a moment, even if it's 5 minutes. And I want you to do this as if something you're giving yourself, like something very special. For example, if you bought a gift for a loved one, you wouldn't just throw the gift in the Amazon box out the car into their yard. You would take it home, you would wrap it, you would find the most beautiful velvet ribbon, you would struggle, do I want black or red? Do I want the thick or thin? There's a lot of thought that goes into giving someone a gift when you're genuinely connected and excited about it. This is the gift you're giving yourself. So if that is pouring yourself a nice glass of wine, making a hot tea, putting on new pajamas, just something that feels a little bit extra that you normally would write off, that you're too busy, it's not important, take that and take those 5 minutes, and I want you to write down what a perfect day would look like for you. How are you waking up? What are you wearing? What does the fabric feel like on your skin? What are you seeing? Who's in your life? How are you filling the time? And if you give yourself 5 minutes, it really will be more like 20, and just pen to paper and just allow yourself to fantasize about what life could be for you. It is the most incredible thing, but something like this, again, they are visions from the future. It has already happened. I guarantee you, you'll read this in a year or two from now, and you will be so much closer, if not already having that life.
Yeah, it is the power of manifestation. And you're so right. The hardest thing is to battle the brain that's always trying to find the answer for everything. And it's not up to us. We are incapable of finding the answers. But I agree with you. If the seed is planted, if God puts something in your heart that this is what you're meant to do, and it's not that you're just to sit there and be inactive, right? You still have to be proactive in things. And what you just said is a perfect example of being proactive. And that is like doing a vision board, journaling about it. How do you see it? How does it spell out? How does it feel? How do you think it feels? All of that is laying a framework for it to come to you, but you've got to be ready to open the doors. And so I want to talk to you about that, the difference between just sitting back and waiting for things to happen versus manifesting and doing what it takes to be able to attract. It's the law of attraction, to bring it to you and then to act on it. So what do you coach women to do there?
So I have a phrase that I use all the time, and I say, you have to pick up your foot in order to kick ass. And
That's right.
there is a difference between waiting and receiving. So when we're in the waiting energy, and there's several different laws. I love law of attraction, but I also love law of assumption. And law of assumption is I get to assume that everything is working out for me. I get to
Absolutely.
assume that I'm only available for miracles and solutions, because what's the flip side? I could be worried about something. And when we put all our energy into one direction, and when you first start doing this, there is this level of like delulu, like we're delusional thinking that it could be different. But I can literally speed up the time of a delivery by a week, because I choose to believe that it will be here sooner. If I choose to believe it'll be here in a week, it will be. But when I choose it'll come sooner, it always comes sooner. And so it's testing our human in the smallest ways to give the human evidence, which helps that battling of the brain. So when we sit and we wait, it essentially, I call it like you're trying to beat disappointment to the finish line. You're literally at the finish line, like, well, let's just wait and see. And wait and see energy is very much like, I don't believe in this. And again, very, very normal human experience. Like this, by no means is there any shame. Like we've all felt this, especially when things feel too big. But it is part of that, like taking our power back. And when we take our power back, it's like, I'm going to do the inspired action. So I'm going to call upon God, the universe, whatever you believe in, higher being than yourself, my higher self. And I know what I want. So I'm going to say, for right now, like, I really want a castle. I can't explain it, but I really want to rehab a castle. And I know it's going to come in the most beautiful way. And I don't need it tomorrow. And I don't put any kind of pressure that because it didn't happen yesterday, I'm never going to have a castle. But I truly believe that I want to have a castle because I already own one. 10-year version of me already lives in her castle. And so now I have to pick up my foot to kick ass. So I need to be working on my business. I need to be increasing my income streams. I need to be talking about the fact that I want to have a castle to people who might know about someone who has a castle. And. So it's like we get to ask for the inspired action, and then we get to lean back and receive. And so it's this beautiful dance versus waiting on the sidelines of the dance floor to be chosen.
Yes, I agree with you. And I think it's, for me, I think about, my prayer life, and I pray big, bold prayers of expectancy because I'm not praying to my God saying, oh, please. It's not like from a beggar's perspective. I believe that he wants the best for us. If he's planted something in our hearts, he wants to see it come to fruition. So I believe that he is working in my behalf behind the scenes, making everything happen. And that it's not my timeline, it's his. It's not exactly my vision, it's his, but it will come to fruition. But you're right. You have to believe it in order to see it. And that's what faith is all about. So planting that seed and having that. But I'm so glad you said not just sitting back and waiting for all of these things to come to you. You have to be proactive. You have to take steps. You have to make moves. It may not be fruitful. It may not be the right one, but you've got to move forward. And it's like this starts to happen. What's working behind the scenes is coming, and what you're doing is coming. And it's this perfect kind of explosion that happens when it works. And it's awesome.
It's amazing. It is so magical. And whenever this happens, I always say, like, identify this feeling, because this is actually how you should feel almost all the time in your life. I mean, you know, that giddiness where you're like, there's going to be a parking spot at the front of the store, and you pull up and you're like, it's mine, it has my name on it. Like, this feeling is like, this should not be the random twice a year kind of feeling. This should be, you should finding it every single day. And this is really co-creating with the universe. And that's why it starts with you figuring out what it is you actually want, asking if you can't get behind it, asking how perhaps you could see this differently, asking for divine support, give me the guides, show me the way, and then picking up your foot to kick ass to make it happen. Because every single decision you make, every single action, it's all compounded to make this thing happen in a way that you can't even imagine.
Mm-hmm. You coach many women who are very successful. I mean, millionaire successful. What's the secret sauce? What makes them different from the rest?
They walk with fear. And that is like the biggest thing, like, courage. It's like, it's having that compounded courage, and faith is really believing when there's no evidence. And I know a lot of times we really chalk up faith to be this really strong, powerful feeling. And then I think a lot of us lose faith in faith because we're like, I don't really feel powerful by this word faith. But it's remembering that faith is still believing when there's no evidence, still assuming. Because again, going back to personal power, you have the choice. You have the choice to believe or not believe. It really gets to be that simple. We cannot change the circumstance, but we can change our thoughts around it. We can change our actions around it. And then we can change the feelings and the actual results. And so when the circumstance happens, it is the initial, thoughts that are kicking off that are going to impact our feelings. And this is why that saying, your feelings impact your results. It's like, how can I pick a better feeling thought? That is literally like a little piece of gold that, again, walking with fear, I feel like these millionaires have. It's like, I can believe it's not working out, or I can believe it is working out. And then that dictates the actions that they take. And those actions is what dictates the results. And for those of us still waiting to be chosen and still sitting with our not so good thoughts, are not seeing the results that we really want in our life, simply because we're just giving our power away, whether it's attention, money, focus, other energetic connections with our relationships. And we're just not noticing because, again, we haven't gone back to ask ourselves, what is it that I want?
I love what you speak of. You're speaking my language, sister. And I'm so grateful to have you. I know you're holding a copy of your book. I want you to hold it up, show everybody, tell everybody where they can get it.
So this is Sir Thriving. It is my memoir of breaking generational cycle of childhood poverty, abuse, and trauma. You can buy it on Amazon. Last I checked, the paperbacks are actually out of stock. They're coming back, but it's on Kindle, paperback. There will be an audiobook next year. And it's all about making sure that we are truly finding the strength by sharing our stories and no longer suffering in silence.
I love that. And it's surviving is the word that you played off of, but thriving is what it is that you want women to do. And it's such a wonderful union, I think, of your pain and where you come from, and then how you take that and elevate yourself so that you can thrive for the rest of your life. And I'm so grateful. We all go through darkness. We all go through tough times of self-reflection and examination and what the heck, why am I here and what's going on? And this isn't what I wanted or anticipated or thought or felt. And, it's those moments, those are the forks in the road where we can choose to go one way. And I'm grateful that you chose that fork of self-reflection, of the deep dive, the transparency, to be able to write that book. Because Franceska, I mean, to me, it's all about using your voice to help somebody else. If what you say, if what I say can help somebody think differently, do differently, and be differently, then we've made an impact. And I just believe that's what, God wants us to do, is to make an impact. And I know you do that on a personal level as well through coaching. So how can people find you in that way?
Absolutely. And just to to add one more thing to what you said, at the end of the book, I talk about a lot of times we get stuck on forgiveness or having to like process something, but it really is actually releasing the hope for a better past. And that is what I have found to be the hardest, but also most therapeutic gift I give myself and other people in my life.
That's beautiful.
A great place that I love to connect is just on Instagram. I'm always on Instagram. I love connecting. I share everything going on in my world there, any kind of coaching opportunities, programs. I'm a pretty open book. I share about my life, living dual continent, freedom-based, alarm-free lifestyle. I'm all about empowering women. Right now, I'm really talking about what it feels like to go no contact with a family member and kind of, dealing with that whole chaos that a lot of us fear. And so I just think that's the best place to connect is on Instagram, and check out the show notes. I'm sure there's going to be a link there.
Absolutely. We will definitely provide links to your social, but go ahead and say your Instagram handle just so verbally people can hear it.
Absolutely. So it's Franceska.McCaughan. It's 18 letters, so definitely find the link. And I am the founder of Goddess Millionaires and the Hotel Florist, and you can find both of those accounts as well. But I think the best place to connect, especially after you listen to this episode, is just come say hi. Let me know what really you connected with, and I would love just to start a conversation.
Wonderful. Again, we will provide links in the show description, and for people watching on YouTube, we'll have the links in the description portion of the video as well. But my goodness, thank you so much for your time, for your insights, your thought, your work, and your willingness to share and make a difference, Franceska. I really think this is going to be such an impactful episode.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for your time and for everyone listening. And it was just such a pleasure to be here today.
I don't know about you, but Franceska planted a lot of seeds for me. She's very much a thought leader. And I really loved how she talked about writing down what you don't want. Too often we sit there and we'll write about, what we want. It's like she described her perfect man. He looks like this. He sounds like this. He's going to take her for coffee. But she also talks about the importance of writing what you don't want in your life. And I'm a big believer in journaling and writing. And so I think, as I reflect on how I'm going to flourish this week, because I always love to have those takeaways, I'm going to start incorporating that in my journal writing as well. The things that I want, the things that I'm grateful for, but also those reminders of what I don't want in my life, and to pay attention to those things. So great nugget there, Franceska. Thank you so very much. If you enjoyed today's content, and I really hope you did, please remember, if you're listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, to rate, review, subscribe, and share me with those that you know and you love, who you think can benefit from this message. If you watch on YouTube, I always shoot this video on camera as well. Make it a second video per week for me. It airs on Mondays, as you know. You can find information about Franceska in the description portion of this video. You can leave your comment, give us your thoughts about it, and of course, any direction for future content. And just like I say on the audio side, please don't forget to subscribe. It's very important that you do. It helps to spread the word. It helps YouTube to share my content with other people who are like-minded. So I agree. I appreciate your presence. I am so grateful that you're here. I hope you flourish this week, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.